Hi, my name's Graham Ward and I'll be facilitating you through this unit standard. The unit standard is Interpret Current Affairs Related to a Specific Business Sector, Unit Standard 14665. The business environment is made up of two distinct categories, the internal environment and the external environment. Now, the internal environment talks about machines, money, management, materials, those sorts of things we can control. The external environment, on the other hand, is about politics, socio-economic conditions, culture, countries, currencies, things we cannot really affect. They're normally known as macro issues. In the micro or internal side of things, we talk about customers, we talk about suppliers, we talk about markets. Let's take a look at some of these micro issues on a slide. Just under the heading of suppliers, they're guys which supply us with raw materials which are required to run or make our products in the company. They must be reliable, and a business normally has multiple suppliers, so we don't just depend on one supplier. Customers, on the other hand, are the king of our market. Without a customer, we don't have a business. There's different types of customers, such as wholesalers, retailers, industries, government, and other institutions. Market intermediaries are another thing that affect the micro part of a business. They're the link between business and the final customers, such as the middleman, marketing agencies, financial institutions, or even physical intermediaries, such as suppliers of raw materials at some times. Don't forget also, we've got competitors and the public as well. These play a major role in the micro part of a business's life. So as said before, we have the external environment, and this is known as the macro environment. The macro environment is about other countries, currencies, political socio-cultures, things like that which can affect our business from outside of our country. These macro issues are major to a business, especially one which imports and exports goods. Let's take a look at some of the macro issues that may affect a company. The economic environment. It is very complex and dynamic in nature, and it keeps changing as policies of the government change or other governments change their policies. Have a look at Brexit recently. That changed majorly for Europe and Britain. Economic conditions of the public also affect things. How much money do we have to spend? Is the inflation rate very high? Economic policies of the country. Our economic system, what taxes we pay. That sort of thing affects our macro and general environment. And there are other economic factors such as infrastructure, banking, insurance companies, money markets, and even capital markets for gaining loans and starting businesses. Non-economic environment might be something like political or socio-cultural, natural, demographic, or international or technological. These all affect the macro side of our business, which is the larger, normally uncontrollable side of our business. So the non-economic environment is something we easily cannot control. We need to be wary of that as a business. This is part of the macro part of business. The natural resources of South Africa, for example, are very useful from a micro perspective. They include things like gold and platinum and silver and copper mining, or even our fisheries on the sea. These natural resources can be an advantage to somebody starting a business or owning a business in South Africa. As you may have noticed from other unit standards, organizations are made up of a hierarchical scale one way or the other. Somebody is the organization's leader. And below the leader are those that report to that hierarchical leader. A flat organizational structure, for example, will have people talking at the same level and one leader. Whereas other organizational structures, such as hierarchical ones, will have somebody at the top and then step-laddering down to the lowest in the organization. Take a look at the slide in front of you now and have a look at the advantages and disadvantages of hierarchical structures. So the advantages might be the authority and responsibilities are clearly defined by those at the top that make the decisions. If you're below somebody above you, there's a clear form of path for your career, so you'll know how to get to the top of the ladder or to get to the top of the organization. Typically, there are specialist managers, and people report to them for the decisions they make because they have understanding and knowledge about their topics. Also, employees are very loyal to their department within the organization. There are disadvantages to the hierarchical organizational structure, and they are: the organization can be bureaucratic, In other words, people right at the top are making all the decisions. Communication can be slow and sluggish because it takes a long while to go from the bottom all the way to the top before decisions are made. And departments can make decisions which benefit them rather than the business at whole, because departments tend to fight amongst each other. For any business to succeed, there needs to be a healthy infrastructure. What does this really mean? Infrastructure is about the roads, the banking system, the communication system within the country, roads, or even shipping lines, water management, waste management, transportation systems in and around your country. We also talk about cultural and social infrastructure that has to be in place for your country or your organization to succeed. When we talk about socio-cultural issues, we're talking about the demographics of your country, the population, how it's made up, ages, sexes, races. These play a role in business. We're also talking about environmental issues, how the public feels about the environment. What would people do to change the environment? What are companies doing to make a difference to the environment? We also talk about lifestyle. Lifestyle and how the South African public live is an important part of how we interact as businesses in South Africa. And then we've got legislation. And legislation means the laws of our country. How are we governed as a business with the laws South Africa makes? Laws around the environment, around taxes we pay. How about the labor laws or the Employment Equity Act or BEE? These laws impact about how we do business in South Africa. Let's also take a look at some of the events which affect South Africans. South Africa faces leadership issues. It has an economy which is not growing very fast at the moment. We've got large amounts of crime. HIV/AIDS presents a problem to us. Energy is becoming an issue. We're building new power plants all the time to try to cope with the growth and infrastructure we need. There's poverty in South Africa. We're dealing with black empowerment, how to readdress the equality of wealth. And land issues are an issue we need to consider as a nation. The concept of inflation is an interesting one. What does it really mean? Well, inflation means that we lose money against the rand every year. So for example, if inflation is at 10% and we had 100 rand, next year our 100 rand is actually only worth 90 rand, 10% less. In other words, we could only buy 90 rands worth of goods. That's inflation. The increase of products and the reduction of the rand. But how does inflation actually come about? Why do we end up paying more and more for goods? Well, consider this example. Imagine you've got a chicory which is producing 100,000 chicks per day, and you're culling them and have an opportunity to sell them either locally in South Africa or in England, for example, or China. What happens if the English company offers you more than the South African company to buy those chickens? You're probably going to sell the chickens overseas. So because of that, there's less chickens in South Africa. Less chickens in South Africa means we'll have to pay more in South Africa for chickens that have gone outside of our country. That's inflation. We pay more for something that isn't here or where the demand is. But how do we curb inflation? The Reserve Bank lends money to the commercial banks such as Standard Bank or Nedbank or FNB. And he lends it at a certain rate. Let's say it's 6%. So the banks then pass the money across to us or lend it to us at 7 or 8% and make their profit. So how do we stop spending in South Africa, which effectively means inflation? So if, for example, the Reserve Bank increases their rate to the commercial banks from 6 to 7%, then what will happen is the commercial banks will effectively increase their rate to us as the public. By Standard Bank or Nedbank increasing their rate to the public, we'll be less inclined to want to borrow money and spending will slow down. So therefore, this is the way the Reserve Bank can slow down spending in South Africa and reduce inflation. There are two tools which may help you as an organization to better understand the environment and your competitive advantage in the marketplace. They are a pestle analysis and a SWOT analysis. So pestle stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal environments. So the political environment has a bearing on how we do business. If politics are unstable, so will our business environment be. Economics is our rand weak or strong against the dollar or the pound, for example. Social unrest can also cause havoc in business. How about technological changes, such as the internet or computers or other technological changes. The environment is playing a big role about how businesses go about their business, how their waste management is, and what they're doing to save the environment. And then of course there's legal issues, and legal issues have a constraint on how we do business, both internationally and locally. A SWOT analysis, on the other hand, is a very useful tool to understand your competitiveness in the market. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. That's what SWOT stands for. Look at the strengths of your company. Is it its personnel, its products? What may it be? Have a look at the weaknesses your business may have. Is it overly priced or uncompetitive? Are there not enough markets for your business? Then again, as a business, you can also look at opportunities. Are there offshore opportunities in other countries? Can your products be sold to more markets locally here in South Africa? How about making a few creative changes to your products and seeing whether they can benefit your product line? Finally, on the SWOT analysis, look at the threats to your company. It could be macro issues such as other countries, competitors, rand dollar issues. Take a look at these threats carefully and ensure that your company is buffered against them or take decisions to avoid them in the future. Either way, PESTLE and SWOT analysis are ideal tools to use for your company's growth and expansion. Thanks for listening to me and good luck with your online assessment. I'm Graham Ward.